Ladies and gentlemen, breaking old tradition. I just was trying to welcome everybody in German again. So we have a little change. I'm so happy that you are here again. Not only our audience, but the two special ladies which are in our living room again with us. Welcome back, Claire, and welcome back, Ginger. It's such a pleasure after such a short time to have two real, committed, empathic brains again with us, because we believe that you drive customer empathy to a certain, let's say, point, and drive also experience of customers and of organizations. And saying this, I would be most pleased, Claire, if you and afterwards Ginger introduce yourself to our audience, which is now in the regions that I can say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Claire.
Hi, thank you, Ralph. My name's Claire Beatty. I'm Senior Director for Thought Leadership at Genesys. And that means that I lead a lot of research programs looking into CX trends, consumer trends, trends in the CX workforce, looking at trends for the future.
And you're making things even more international than we usually are, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I am based in the heart of the Silicon Savannah, also known as Nairobi, Kenya. We have a lot of wildlife. We have pretty patchy internet, but we live with hope, optimism, Africa,
And it's slightly warmer than we have it over here.
Wildlife is not a nice way to refer to data scientists, but they won't hear this broadcast anyway.
Well, and I'm Ginger Conlon, and I'm Thought Leadership Director at Genesys, working closely with Claire on all the fantastic content that she just mentioned and that we are going to talk a little bit about today.
Fabulous. So, Thomas, will you kick it off?
Well, why me this time? So, which is actually why we came together. So we heard a rumor that there is something to come out of your thought leadership research, and we're just curious about what. Can you tell us a little?
Well, that is a broad question.
Well, we've got
as long as you don't answer no.
We could make it a bit easier, such as we have enjoyed very much your findings in the last research, which gave us a good bottom-up and heart feeling how important customer experience is getting in these times. Yeah. And it would be very interesting for us to see, as you have a magic crystal ball in your hands, what you see and foresee for differentiation to the findings you have had and you have right now, and compare a bit the areas. Would that be a bit easier and less brute?
That's perfect. All right. Well, I can kick us off. So the last time we came on CRM Combos, we talked about some research that we'd done that really highlighted how important the customer experience has become in shaping consumers' perceptions of companies. So 70% of consumers say that a company is only as good as its service. And we've been doing it's hugely important these days. Consumers really look to the digital experiences they're having, whether it's on websites, whether it's, interacting with companies on social and various digital channels, and in the contact center. And the overall quality of that experience, they equate to how good is this brand. So we're seeing less that companies are differentiated on product and much more on a service and on experience. So in the months following the publication of that research, we've been digging more into those themes, looking at what really drives the customer experience today, what consumers are experiencing when they're interacting with companies, the kind of good, the bad, and the ugly about customer service today. And then we've also been looking at the people who create those experiences. So particularly contact center agents, we've been exploring what's their working experience like? What do they really value? What drives their behavior? And what do they love? And what do they hate about their job? And so those are some of the themes that we've been diving into over the past 3 months.
That is a very cool statement, such as is the stressful part in their jobs, such as a happy employee creates a highly motivated, hopefully more motivated and inspired customer. Do you have here some clues for us?
I have a few clues that I can share from the human values report that Claire just mentioned. So one of the things that we learned was what agents value most. Yeah. And interestingly, performance, let me just get the exact terminology, is the highest performing agents. I just shut down. The brain just shut down because I'm thinking about two things at one time. And the one thing is we also asked them what they love, hate, and wish was different about them. This is like what's in the forefront of my mind, because what they love is they love to learn. They want advancement opportunities. And similarly, they wish that they could learn more. They want to learn more about technology. Yeah. So all of these things are tied together. They want the opportunity for additional compensation. So all tied together, and they're looking for ways to deliver a better performance, to get things done, to be valued, to grow jobs. So, and that, ties back to the customer experience, because if they're doing those things well, then you're delivering a better customer experience.
I wanted to get back to the customer experience figure you quoted at the top of this, that Claire quoted, actually, that 70% feel that, let me get the actual quote that you said, because I don't like being wrong. 70% of consumers said that a company is only as good as its customer service. That reminds me of what we've been saying for quite some time, that, 60 or 70% of customers are one bad experience away from going to a competitor. Is there any support, or did you see anything of that nature in your study, whether it has changed, remain true? I mean, does the 70% that you came across aggregate, or we're going to get you kind of number?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of stats that are kind of in that realm that are pretty interesting. It was about half of consumers said they had mostly experienced good service during the pandemic. So half of consumers have mostly experienced bad service during the pandemic. And a third of consumers say that dealing with customer service is always a hassle. So there's those consumers, there's a lot of consumers who do not feel like they're getting good service. They feel like it's always a hassle. But the other half feel like they've mostly experienced good service. What we also learned is that 1 in 6 consumers has called the contact center just to hear a human voice.
Yes, I remember that.
So, there's people out there who are really using the businesses that they interact with as an important touch point in their lives. And they don't want to talk to a bot. They actually just want somebody to speak to and to empathize with their situation. So I think it just shows that great experiences just have a really powerful impact on consumers. And there's also just a huge opportunity across the board to make them better.
Now, if you're saying that contacting support or service is a hassle, which it is, but the best experience is not having the experience in that case. What do you have any indications about what works best at that point in time? So from a technology point of view, of course, personal empathy does work in alleviating some pain, but what technology support works best? Do you have any indications about that?
Ginger, I was thinking you could recount some of the highlights from the conversation we had today with the customer. With
the customer that
they had some really good insights.
Yeah, well, so voice. We spoke to a customer today that kind of echoed the State of CX report that we have coming out very soon, next week or so. Voice is still tops, and voice increased over the pandemic with all of the people who couldn't go to the places that they would normally go. They couldn't go to the retail store. They couldn't go to the bank branch. So more people making calls, but also more people using chat. So in some cases, live chat, in some cases, chatbots. But another area that's seen renewed interest is video chat. In this particular customer that we spoke with today, they really want to up their game in video chat because they feel like it's when needed, it's the most empathetic type of interaction that you can have. So now if someone's calling in for something simple, they just, I don't know, I'm just going to make it up. They just need their address updated. Okay, that can be a bot, that could be an IVR interaction, something simple, self-service. But if someone has had some kind of a life-changing event, maybe they've moved and they're calling in because they need, I don't know, a new roof, or they need a whatever it is. They need to talk to someone because it's a stressful situation or just a big change. Then they want that more personal interaction. That's a voice might be suitable, but sometimes video can really get to the next level. And the agent on the other end of the interaction has the opportunity to be especially empathetic and be able to see those cues that you can't see when you are just on voice. So, and the person that we spoke with is really excited about that opportunity to provide that to their customers in an even bigger way.
It does seem like a great opportunity. I mean, after all, we are kind of hardwired to react to other human faces. And in a time of crisis, that's got to be a wonderful help. Of course, that does mean that call center agents are going to have to dress up more even when they're at home. They'll actually have to shave more often.
Yeah. Well, one thing that he also pointed out was that it's very important, if you're going to do that, to have call routing that has intelligence built into it, so that the customers are being routed to the person with the skill, with the knowledge to handle that particular situation. So, they'll have to dress up.
That is a very important hint, such as there is smartness in the technology to route them to the appropriate person with the appropriate skill for the situation, or that if he is requesting or she is requesting a special person to talk to, that it is easily manageable which in these days, with the new means of technology, such as try to connect somebody to Teams, as it is not an easy operation. You need some extra software. It's not like a switchboard you had in the old days. And the other thing is, I'm so embracing the aspect that seeing faces and seeing emotion aside of to see with your ears is a lot more comfortable, because you then can focus on some more stuff. And if, for instance, I want to help a customer out of a critical situation, or as a salesperson, I want to convince him to buy something and give him all the arguments, I'm more a bit like an Italian, yeah? My Southern Tyrolean ancestors come then with me, such as I speak with my arms, my hands, and the whole body, and I open up my eyes and I raise my eyebrows. So this body language is, for convincing, also important. My point of view.
So I think one other thing that is, good to point out is there's a lot of smart features that and smart technology that you can use when you understand someone's intent. When you really understand someone's intent, you can route them to the right person. You can create really smart journeys that get them to what they want. You can create smart bots. You can, but understanding that intent and really using technology, using data to be really understand what their intent is, and then get them what they're looking for. Not just the final answer that they're looking for, but how they're looking to get that answer. And I think that there's a really big opportunity for companies to get a lot smarter earlier on in the customer journey to understand that intent and put yourself in the customer's shoes. How do we create the journey that this particular customer wants?
Yeah.
Is that a question that can be answered with metrics?
That's a good question. I mean, you have to understand what to understand what your customers want. You can put some metrics around it, right, and see what is driving their satisfaction, related to what your goals are, so that they're aligned, right? So if you want to, measure customer effort, what comprises your customer effort score versus another company's? And by tracking that, are you actually going to take action to make sure that you are, making it easier for customers to complete whatever it is, right? So I'm sure there are metrics around it. You need to make sure that you're choosing the right ones.
Which should be the right ones. I mean, everybody's talking about customer satisfaction, about NPS, and the next thing you hear, oh my God, NPS is such a not so good thing. Yeah? So where do you stand in that, on that scale?
Oh, I have to take this one, because there's a lot of people who don't love NPS. And I understand why, because they feel like it's not enough. But if you use NPS well, you can get a lot of great information. Now, first of all, you can use it to take temperature, right? So would you recommend, yes, no, I'm indifferent. That tells you something. That's a starting point. The key thing is the why. Why would you, or why did you give that answer? Why did you give the answer that you gave? That is the piece of information that's going to get you the action that you need to take, either to keep customers happy or to move someone who gave you a 4 up to giving you a 7, up to giving you a 10. So that's where I think NPS is highly valuable and can translate back to revenue, because if you're making changes that, customers, they gave you a 4 because they were unhappy with something, and you fix that something, And now a whole raft of customers that had that same feeling have moved up to a 7, and they're spending more money with you now, and they're recommending you because, hey, this company actually, I asked them to change and they did, and this thing is better now. You're creating a virtuous cycle. It's not ideal on its own. You still need other things around it to make sure that it's helping you get to the answers that you need. But personally, I think that it should be a part of the mix. And I think that you also need to keep looking for what else that you need to add or change. Don't get too comfortable in the metrics. If there's something new that you should be looking at, people are trying to measure empathy right now. So how do you do that? Is that possible? Let's try that and see how that might help, for example.
Have you experiences one out of measuring empathy?
I'd like to hear about how that gets done.
Yeah,
have you figured it out yet?
That's a work in progress. I think companies are looking to create measurement around it. So
cool.
Keep an eye out on that. Keep an eye out.
Yeah. So this would be one out of the crystal ball prognosis for 2022. Fantastic.
Casting the empathy net a little wider, because this is a pet peeve between Ralph and me.
Yeah, because Thomas has no empathy.
I think
totally apart from that. So in times of increasing automation, and I agree that empathy is not without its value. Totally not. Yeah. So now in times of increasing degrees of automation, we have a decreasing degree of empathy-enabled players, means people. Yeah. So in how far do you think that it is possible to display or project empathy without people?
I can take this one. Genesys, we would argue that technology is absolutely critical to being empathetic with customers and with employees. Empathy is not being nice or polite or listening or sympathizing. It's actually being in the shoes of the customer and getting them what they want. I want to update my address, for whatever reason. And it's not empathetic to me to make me wait on hold for 15 minutes to speak to someone to do that. That's not empathetic to me. Empathetic is I'm making self-service so quick for you, making it so quick that I've done it in a minute and a half and I can get on with my day. Like that's how we talk about empathy internally. It's really putting yourself in the customer's shoes and connecting you with whatever resource creates value for you. Maybe I do need to talk about getting a mortgage, and I do want to have a video interaction with someone where I can tell them it's really, really important that I get this, that, and the other, and the timing and everything. And I really, really, really need them to understand. That's empathy. But also, wasting my time on something because your technology is not smart enough to understand what I'm trying to achieve is not empathetic.
So in blunt words, a chatbot can very well be empathic.
For sure, if it is actually well programmed and can deliver on the intent for which it was designed.
So a focused bot could do a proper service in supporting, and then everybody is happy and the experience is a good one. We stay with that and the job is done, which is important for Thomas, because we are a bit teasing each other, such as I like the job to be done with some positive emotion. And he says, simply if it's done, it's enough. You shouldn't have to smile in it if he can't see you. The bot won't smile. Yeah.
No. What I say is that now it's an internal discussion, which is really fun. So, but it would be good to see your point of view there as well. What I do say is, it's like old Eliza. So as long as it appears empathic, it smells empathic, looks like empathy, it is empathy. So, and which can very well be delivered without any human on the other side. So it goes, well, if the bot commiserates with me, then it's empathy.
I think it's important to take emotion out of empathy. I don't think it's about emotion. I think it's about, is it designed with my journey in mind? Is it designed to be empathetic? As in, it's designed to really think about what I'm trying to achieve and then getting me there and doing it. I don't think it's actually got anything to do with emotion at all.
Right, so the empathy is about accomplishing a customer's goals, not accomplishing the company's goals around the customer, as is too often the case with customer service.
I put this in a broader, let's say, context. I was wondering, as an analyst, that I have not yet found a measurement or quadrant, to put it very politely to one of our colleagues, which do their researches in quadrants, about customer centricity, where it could be measured how technology is helping and enabling customer centricity, if we can agree that this is a part of the journey which can be emotionally positive and can be empathic. How do you see that? Have you observed there already any actions?
So are you asking whether the technology is helping to support customer centricity?
I'm asking if anybody you know is measuring it yet. I didn't found one. The question behind is, would it be possible to find a site of NPS and something where the person is answering us if he has had a positive experience, if technology is enabling and helping from the perspective of the employee and the perspective of the customer, that it was helpful? That was a bit behind the idea of the question.
Okay, so I have some ideas, and I think one of the trends that we're also seeing is that companies move away from these kind of like specific point in time measurements, right? At the end, how happy am I? You know, green smiley face, it was great. That is just me providing some instant feedback, but it doesn't take into account that my package got lost, that, you know, there was a problem on the credit card, that I actually had to phone twice, you know. So there's all of these kind of like independent, internal and external signifiers that would tell you, actually, it wasn't that great for me. I said at the end, you know, because we had a nice conversation, yeah, it was great, thanks. But actually, if you really understand the entire journey that I had, it wasn't that great for me. So I think companies are starting to think much more about the quality of the overall journey, not just what someone says at one point in time.
Yeah, because
sorry.
It's okay. I was going to add on to that, because from a consumer point of view, when I'm interacting with someone in a company, especially in customer service, I'm very conscious of what my comments in any survey after that might reflect on that person. And that's, you know, that is always going to temper my responses. And I don't know if that's still helpful. You know, are the surveys sensitive enough to separate the servant from the service?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because years ago I was talking to one of a customer experience executive at an airline, and he was saying that when they do NPS surveys at the end of calls, because they want to learn about the agent's performance, they have to multiple times say that that's what they are looking for, because they don't want someone rating their flight or rating the delay or like anything else about what, if they took a vacation, the hotel was, but whatever. They want to know only like, how was your experience talking to this agent at this time? And that can be a challenge, because it's easy to, have a great time at Disney World, but then if you can't find your car, what do you remember? You remember getting lost in the parking lot, which is, why all the Disney lots are named after characters, and that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, and there is a limit to the number of questions someone's going to respond to on a survey, so you have to get to it quickly.
Your Disney World or Disney resort example is a very good one, such as one of the typical Thomases, such as if the dentist did not use some of his toys, and it was less stressful and it didn't cause you pain, you remember it in a positive way. But such as our brain is working in the way, if I spend money, it's like having a dentist at my teeth and my nerves, it's painful. The delight or the positive experience has to be overwhelming to cure that pain. What I was looking for in that measurements and the idea behind it is some of our analyst colleagues probably are very technology driven, which is no bad thing.
What?
But
technology
what I do see is what does an end user has a benefit of, or the employee, if he is looking into these estimations, evaluations, and technical driven stuff, where there is, politely speaking, apologize my rude words, feature fucking in the highest possible moment, but it's not delivering me the benefit of, with this machine, my people will love the software, and this software is highly used. They love it. They love to use it. They love to do a fantastic job. So they will really work with it. That is something I would love to do. And this is for me something I can't touch in the moment, such as this would work or pay in to customer centricity and the empathy and some of the emotion. But this is a typical Ralph, yeah?
Yep, typical Ralph.
I'm just going to kind of tangent from that, because one of the things that I found interesting in the conversation we had with our customer this morning was he said something about when you give a better customer experience and the customer eventually makes it to an agent, you wind up having a better employee experience because the customer is less frustrated and less upset. And when Claire was talking earlier about the different technologies and how they can understand intent and make it easier for the customer to accomplish what they want to do, it made me think of that comment, because so often we think about the employee experience, and are we giving employees the technology that they need and the training that they need to deliver a great customer experience. But on the other side, we don't think as much about, are we giving the customers, we think about them separately. Are we giving the customers the experience they need to get something done? But if we don't, then we hand them off to these frontline folks who then get beat up because the customer had a bad experience with, whatever, with the chatbot that didn't have an answer, or waiting on hold 10 minutes when it should be, 1 minute, or what have you. And I just thought that was so interesting to look at it from that perspective, where we really need to travel down both roads with, in terms of technology, right? Finding the technology that helps the customers have a better experience, finding the technology that helps the employees not only have a better experience themselves, but deliver a better experience to customers. And those roads should, it should be like the two lanes on the highway next to each other. And sometimes those lanes are going to come together.
Yeah.
And create that
cool picture. That's a really cool picture. And it comes to the question, who is paying the bill and who is taking the decision due to your experience? And are we getting some other people we have probably not yet seen in the role of the decision-making process to promote the technology to enable the front folks? Has there been some change?
I think Claire and I have been interviewing various customers for the State of Customer Experience report, and many of them are on the technology side of the house, and they are so customer centric. And
wow,
on the one hand, it's like you're surprised, but then you kind of feel bad being surprised about that, because it's like, well, just because you work with technology doesn't mean you're not customer centric. I mean, it's like just because you're working with technology doesn't mean you're creative or whatever. You can have all those qualities.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know some folks who are data analysts who are and they work a lot with marketing data, to be specific. They're so customer centric. Because if you think about it, that benefits the business, right? I mean, if you're taking care of customers, customer satisfaction, customers will buy more often. They'll recommend you. They'll stick around. They'll be more loyal, and so so it makes sense for someone who's in technology or in data, or a data analyst who thinks strategically to be customer centric.
Now, customer centricity, there's always this funny question, who comes first, the employee or the customer? So there is, looking at this highway example, the highway image. Oh my God, I have an echo, sorry. I just mute everybody else. Sorry. Looking at the highway example, there are plenty of people who are saying, well, it's not two lanes of the same highway, it's two entirely different highways, and you can build only one with limited budgets. So what you suggest is, well, it's not two highways, but it might be, well, lanes that go apart because there's an obstacle in between or whatever. So is there any indication where the correlation between an improved employee experience to an improved customer experience is? Because that's highly important to decide where to budget, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any data that shows an exact correlation, but generally speaking, I mean, if you think about if you're a happy employee, you're going to probably be more empathetic. You're going to be more engaged. If you're unhappy, everything is going to be very rote, very like check the box. So I think it's just kind of straightforward thinking that employees who are engaged are going to deliver a better customer experience. And that's on the emotional side. I mean, I think if you're taking care of your employees, and what I mean by that is not just like pat on the back, hey, you're doing a great job, which is important, but also, like we talked about before, are you giving them the technology that they need to answer customer questions? Are you empowering them with insight and the ability to take an action, the ability to do things instead of escalating everything, using AI to support them, but with instant coaching and making sure that you're routing to the right agent and all the things that make the experience better for them? You're enabling them to deliver a better customer experience, and you can track those metrics of agent satisfaction as well. and then link those to your customer satisfaction metrics and see if they correlate, right? So if you're taking care of your employees and they're sticking around, maybe you have less turnover. Maybe you have more employees meeting their numbers because you're helping them do that by giving them the technology and the training that they need. Well, since that changed, how is your customer satisfaction numbers? Have they gone up? I'm sure there's ways to do it. I just don't have numbers handy of like where it's being done.
I think one example that we've had 2 times recently is about in-queue callbacks. Mm-hmm. Right? You've been waiting on hold. At some point, maybe 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, there's like we know what you're trying to achieve. We're going to get you the best person to do that, and we're going to call you back at a time that's convenient to you. So the customers that we've spoken to about that technology say that it actually makes consumers more patient because they feel like they feel like they have an option. There's some kind of level of empowerment. They feel like they can hold their place in the queue, but they still got that option to press a button as something different. So they're more patient. Mm-hmm. And then when the agent is speaking to them, either it's on the callback or maybe they decided to hold, it's a better conversation. They're in a better frame of mind. So that's just an example. And I think there's so many examples of this kind of like win-win. It's a win for the consumer and it's a win for the agent. And, they both have a better experience. And, I would love to say that we've correlated the data and we can show that employee engagement, leads to better, customer experiences. That could be our next study, Ginger. We're asked for this data point so frequently. So I think we might work on that. But just generally, the customers that we're talking to, during the pandemic, so many of them have suffered from attrition. Like working in a call center, maybe you have like your kids around, or there's a lot of things going on, and it's really, really hard for you to actually have that present job that you need to have when and it's in a heightened time of stress. So attrition has been a real issue. So they're really looking at this employee value proposition right now. What's going to motivate, getting people on board, getting them up to the level where they can use the technology, provide these great experiences. So your people are your most valuable resource.
Yeah, I'm asking because there are actually those 2 factions who are pretty much opposing each other with swords drawn. And are fighting each other, saying, I'm right, no, I'm right. So it's always interesting to identify where the middle ground is, because there must be some middle ground. And if we are talking about increasing degrees of automation, then apparently, in quotes, the importance of the happy employee goes down. And apparently, we have companies like Amazon, prime example actually, who couldn't care much less about the employee experience. And still they're highly successful. So this to me means both parties somehow seem to be right. And that's always interesting to see how the arguments are, how the vision is. Yeah? And how to probably find a way to optimize both. At the end of the day, we are looking for a global optimum.
And what I observe is I look very often in the decision-making center, the classical buying center. If I see into the theoretical models and I see in the real world, what is your experience through the different researches you have taken? Did customer centricity arrive at the C level? And who is taking the lead to make things happen?
Good one.
So yes, so the State of Customer Experience report, we learned that customer experience is typically owned by the head of customer experience or the chief customer officer, about 25% each at different organizations. And nearly 60% of CX functions report directly to the board. Interestingly, 13%, that's like, I said about 60%. 13% report into sales, 13% into operations. So it definitely has a seat at the table.
That's cool.
About
I think
time.
this is progress. Yeah.
Yeah. And as Claire said earlier, well, she also pointed out attrition, but headcounts are also growing because there's more calls coming into the contact center. See if I can say that at all, let alone fast. There's more calls coming into the call center, but there's also more interactions of every type. Digital has spiked, chat has spiked, so headcounts are growing, but budgets are also growing, and so companies are supporting the function. Now, maybe they're not getting like all the budget that they'd love to have, but 65% of CX executives say their headcount is growing over the next 12 months.
Okay.
And let's see, 11. Let me just find the right number. I don't. There's a lot of numbers all in my head, so I have to write them down. So 18% say that their budgets will be reduced, but 11% are staying flat, and 71% are seeing a budget hike. So that's a big number.
Big.
So one of the other interesting things that we learned is that from one of our customers who used to have a retail business, but really like in-store retail, and they were not known at all for e-commerce. And over the past 2 years, they've really transitioned to an e-commerce model. But I feel like the insight would apply to many, many customers. And that is that as they shifted their business online, those customers required a lot more support than their traditional in-store customer would have done. So, maybe it's like, where is my order? Like, it's not what I expected. I need to return it. Like, these kind of things were coming up so much more frequently through the online model. And I think what we've seen over the past 18 months with the shift to online, so many businesses are experiencing that right now. They're doing a lot more business online, and those customers need support. And that means more calls to the call center, more digital interactions, and experience matters. So this is requiring, a lot more headcount for a lot of organizations, a lot more budget in order just to beef up this infrastructure and be able to manage the business in this new way.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that story too is the customer expectations of what information that they could get. They were getting people were going to self-serve for chat for deliveries, but if it wasn't the detail that they wanted, they would call, and the detail was they wanted to know where their delivery was in the route. Were they the next? Were they 3 deliveries from now? Were they 9 deliveries from now?
Right.
And so, unless if you're not generally, retailers aren't connected with like DHL or FedEx or whoever. You have to go over to their site to know where you are in the queue, if they even have that information, because a lot of times they don't. A lot of times, sometime before 8 o'clock tonight is when you're getting your package.
Right.
You're getting all these calls from people who had gone to chat to find out that yes, their package was getting delivered today, but what time? Like, when do I need to be there? So it's interesting how it's the customer expectations are just so high today.
But it is interesting to see that this is the real life, and where we can assist with a combination of technology, such as when I was in a project, I observed that the call center ladies, they were most ladies in that case, had 4 screens. It looked like Star Trek. 4 screens, 4 systems to manage and to get prompt answers. And then they had let's say, a less performing CRM behind it. So they made double entries just to speed up processes. And this would be a big step forward if we can help there with technology to deliver better jobs, if it's easier done. And such smart combinations such as, we have used Hermes, DHL, UPS. I can track for you yeah, such as I Google for you how you can find it, and be still polite and helpful, and they love you even at the double because you have shown them a trick. You have shown them that next time they can first try it for themselves, or if they are not capable, such as my father at 85, he would never have a clue to look up, yeah, to find a trace in DHL online. So he would always go for the telephone version, such as calling my sis, calling me and say, I'm waiting for that package for way too long. When will it arrive? Can you help me? Yeah?
Mine is only 81, he still can.
Time is changing fast, trust me. 4 years ago, he was a lot more fit.
What I'd like to tie that back is to something that Claire said a bit earlier. So journey orchestration, how to create the best journey, how to enable them to go the best possible journey. So if I combine that with the questions that are usually asked post experience or post event, are these questions helpful that are asked, or should companies go slightly different routes in order to identify whether something is wrong with the journey overall or with just the interaction that I had with Ralph now in this particular?
So, I mean, just thinking back to the customer conversation that we had today, they have 500 product managers. Each product manager has to storyboard their customer journey, like their full customer journey, and figure out where the offline and the online channels add value, not just for the customer, but also for the company. And so they plot these kind of like journeys on this chart. One is customer value, one is company value, and then they identify what journeys they are trying to create, and they storyboard it. They storyboard each journey from the customer's perspective. If I'm coming in from here, if I'm coming in from here, if I'm coming in from here, what journey do we want people to have? And so if it's high value for the company as well as the customer, it's time well spent if there's mutual value to have, a bells and whistles, physical interaction. Maybe we get the video going, really, like focus on you. Whereas if it's low value for the customer, they just want a quick answer. It's not changing my address. It's not matters of value for me. But it's just, but so that's how they kind of break it down. And I think that kind of thinking from the customer's perspective, what are all these journeys that we want to create, and then map out where's the value.
That was a real wow effect for me. Giving me that picture of the storyboards and of that amount of product managers and that amount of different journeys. Hard to manage, challenging. And
another thing that they also said is that they have this channel strategy, this chart, and when they're looking at any journey, they're always taking it back to the channel strategy, and it has to be signed off. The journey has to be signed off and approved.
So it leaves not much flexibility. The flexibility is in convincing some of the people which have to sign off to do it fast, so to make it happen, yeah? This is the good question in the challenging area, such as if CX leaders do have some challenges, where do you see the internal and where the external challenges they are facing in getting their jobs done?
Ginger, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So for the state of CX, one big challenge, no surprise to anyone on this conversation or listening in, is aging technology. Another one we talked about earlier is workforce engagement, maintaining quality of service while operating aging technology, which I think it was just discussed moments ago, is another one. And then, in some cases, managing data privacy is another one, which, is such a hot topic right now as well.
So do you see the benefit in opening a lot of silos and get a better understanding through getting the data together properly, cleaned, and get a clearer inside picture?
So here's the thing about data silos. Data lands where it lands because the organizations within a company need it that way, right? So finance needs to look at a customer's information in one way, customer service another way, marketing another way, sales another way, et cetera, et cetera. So they need their systems designed the way they have them, and that's fine. Like trying to rip all of that out and put in something new in some of these huge companies or companies that have been around a long time is difficult. So what can you do instead? Bring the data together. So bridge the silos versus break down the silos. Where you need to break down the silos, I think, is more organizational, and that's a whole conversation we can have another day. But bridging the data silos with something like a CDP or some related technology, whatever's right for your organization, brings the data together, gives you that one instance of truth. Obviously, you need to set up the processes so that you've got quality data coming into the system. So, the old garbage in, garbage out kind of situation, you need to have quality data. But when you use a system like that, it helps you keep the data fresh, accurate. If you've got a system where you can use it in, quote, real time, whatever that might mean for you, because real time differs based on the organization. That's where you get the value of having that holistic view. I don't want to say 360 view because that again differs by each organization, what information they're bringing in. But that kind of technology helps you bring together the internal and the external data so that you can, do what Claire was saying earlier and give that better experience because you're understanding intent, or you're doing a better job using predictive analytics, et cetera, by having that in the moment, what's the next best action, whether that's marketing or customer service, right? It's a system like that allows you to do that and do it well because you've got the connected data.
I'm curious, just in general, innovation doesn't come from eureka moments as often as it comes from you looking at some data and saying, that's funny. I'm wondering if there's anything in the study that you've just completed and are going to publish that struck you as funny or interesting and unexpected.
I can think of one thing that really jumped out at me. There's a couple of things, but so the survey that we've done of consumers, we previously ran this survey 2017, 2018. So comparing over time, what's changed? So compared to 2017, 2018, consumers today say they're much more motivated by personalization. They really want consistently personalized experiences, and they will spend more, spend frequently, refer to their friends. Like their behavior is much more strongly linked to those consistently personalized experiences. However, when we ask them, are you willing to exchange, have your purchase history stored in exchange for a personalized experience? Are you willing to share your location? Are you willing to have your credit card data stored? All of these things that you would think like that they would connect with this personalized experience, they were no more willing to share their data than they were in 2017, 2018. These were completely different groups of consumers, and the numbers were almost exactly the same. So I think what really jumped out at us was there's still this trust gap around what am I exchanging my data for? Is it just to enable your marketing automation a little bit more accurately? Or is it like, what is the experience I'm going to get? So that was one thing that really like leapt out at me. And I thought, wow, there's just such an opportunity to have a conversation between companies and customers about what personalization really is. And so it's one thing that like really leapt out at me, like this trust gap. The other thing is we asked consumers, which social, environmental, or ethical issue do you care about most in this world and expect companies to advocate around? And we gave them a long list, you know, poverty alleviation, human rights, carbon reduction, AI ethics, all this long list.
Yeah.
And the number one issue for consumers worldwide, which we did expect, was data privacy. Data privacy and protection is the number one issue that they care about. And that was consistent across all different age categories, you know, 18 to 24s, you know, the 30s and the boomers. Everyone cared about data protection most of all. But number two, which was also almost consistent globally, was animal welfare.
Animal welfare.
Yes.
Well, good, because we all love our pets.
We do. Yes. But given that a lot of companies advocate around other things, you know, that really jumped out at us. And yeah, you know, people care about the natural world. And there's a big opportunity for companies to talk more about that.
I should think so.
As we are past the hour and conscious of your time, we probably should. Well, I've got one final one actually for me. So looking at your experience and looking what you are standing for individually and as a company. So what would you like companies to be able to do to define the next level of state of CX? So what's the future that you want to have, that you envision in terms of CX, state of CX?
Okay, I mean,
just a question. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you know, I think my sense on where things are going is going to be a much more sort of like sensitive, responsive customer journey. What, you know, that's much more like listening, understanding, predicting. AI is obviously the technology that's going to underpin that. And it will, you know, we spoke to some of our analysts recently, and you know, one of the insights that I just really attach to is that AI will lead a culture change. AI will lead a culture change, you know, towards this empathetic experience that will benefit, you know, both of the roads, the employees and the customers. Yeah.
Ginger?
Yeah, I agree. You know, one of the analysts during the call that Claire is referring to also talked about as AI helps shift the contact center and you know, take the rote tasks and enables the agents to be more strategic, we're going to have these super agents who will be a feeder for the rest of the organization, because they will have started their journey working with the customer on the front line and solving real problems, complex problems. When they can step into the organization, they will have an even better view of the customer experience than they do now. So I think that's interesting. And, you know, so, I mean, going back to what I was talking about before, I guess my CX EX wish for today, which is CX Day, is that companies will bring those two roads together and, you know, and align them, because they should be, CX and EX should be inextricably linked.
I like that one.
That one, yeah, me too. Esteban probably not so, but
Yes.
then it's good to have discussions, different opinions. Okay.
Well, this was a good time. Thank you both very
Yes.
much for coming by and discussing your findings and
Yeah.
being generally brilliant.
Thank you for having us. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It was fantastic to
Yeah.
see your views on the interpretation of the data, what was jumping out, and to share that you have shared your crystal ball view with us up front. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for all these insights that you brought. Perspective is what matters, and that's great for us, and for the audience, hopefully too.
Keep learning, people.
Okay, let's go backstage.
And stay healthy.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Okay, to the audience, thanks a lot for joining in, and see you next time.